Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Gary Galinsky. I'll be part of your presentation team today. I'd like to welcome you to this session, AMZ303, Unlocking the Power of Generative AI and Simplifying Ad Creations with AWS. So we're talking about generative AI, and we're talking about ads. Can I see a show of hands? Who here in the audience actually works with generative AI? Awesome, a couple of you. How about a show of hands of who works with advertising? How about a show of hands of who works with both advertising and generative AI? That's awesome. That's awesome. There's going to be something in this for all of you. So over the next 60 minutes, we're going to explore how generative AI has impacted us at Amazon. And we're specifically going to focus on Amazon ads. We'll examine not only the effect of generative AI, but its significance to Amazon as a company. This is a 300-level course or presentation. So we're going to dive deep into the architecture, and we're going to talk about how the building blocks that we've used, the repetitive building blocks, have allowed us to accelerate our development on generative AI. So we've witnessed a huge technological transformation over the last 12 months. We've gone from generative AI being an emerging concept, primarily discussed in media and explored by some early adopters, with enterprises spending a lot of their time asking questions like, what is this? A lot of what questions. We've seen today a transformation. Our conversations have shifted. We're no longer asking the what is generative AI question anymore. We're now focusing on the implementation strategies. How do we scale? How do we go bigger? How do we go faster? How do we accelerate our innovation? This is not just merely a technological progress. It really is a paradigm shift. And at AWS, we have been at the forefront of offering a comprehensive suite of solutions and technologies and services to support generative AI. This slide is already way out of date. Just based on the two presentations yesterday morning and this morning from Swami, this slide is already out of date. This is how fast this industry is progressing, and AWS is leading the way. Now I'm going to have a couple of quotes on here. You'll probably see some of these that are familiar. But what I want to highlight is that the pace of technological advancement is just remarkable right now. It actually reminds me, if you're as old as me, of the personal computer revolution. Right? There was a period of significant technological disruption when the computer first came out. And the PCs themselves were often viewed with skepticism and potentially as workforce disruptors. Today, we're experiencing that same kind of inflection point with generative AI. But it's happening at a dramatically more compressed pace. It's happening really, really fast. Where the previous technological transformations were gradual, they took years, right? Today's is happening in a matter of months. And organizations that hesitate, or businesses or individuals at businesses that hesitate on this, we run the risk of becoming obsolete. Now, in my personal life, this is actually really hits close to home for me. I've got 3 daughters. Chloe, she's a software engineer. Grace is a school teacher, and Cecily is a law student, all of whom are in professions that are being disrupted by generative AI. In our family, we often discuss this. How do we deal with this technology that's impacting their careers? How do we make sure that they are the ones that know how to use these tools to move forward? And what's certain for me is to have access and mastery of these tools. It's what's going to be critical to their success in their careers. In my professional career, I actually have a very unique role at AWS. I'm a solutions architect. Hi. But I support Amazon as a customer on AWS. One of the largest cloud consumers out there is Amazon, and I have the privilege of supporting them as a solutions architect. Amazon, as you can imagine, is a highly dynamic company. We operate globally and at massive scale. And I have the opportunity to see firsthand how generative AI is reshaping Amazon's business. Thanks to generative AI, Amazon has a new emphasis. We're focusing on developing advanced tools for our employees to empower what we do, but also on creating innovative solutions for our customers and partners so they have the tools that they need to be successful in this generative AI world. And just like my daughters, the same holds true for our business. Access to and mastery of these generative AI tools is going to be critical for their success. At Amazon, we're not just observing this revolution. We're actively driving it, and we're leading the way by building these tools. Let me show you a couple of examples to illustrate this. This is Rufus. You may have seen it in Andy Jassy's keynote. Rufus is an AI-powered shopping assistant that helps Amazon customers discover products, find information about products, and even compare. Right? So it's a tool that helps our customers. Again, generative AI assistance for our customers. In our Amazon fulfillment centers, our maintenance engineers, they previously spent hours navigating complex technical documents to diagnose operational problems. We're now using generative AI assistance to reduce this process from hours down to minutes. This allows us to dramatically improve the efficiency and the problem-solving capabilities of our resources. But more importantly, this ensures that your packages get delivered on time. Right? It's about you as the customers. Similarly, internally, our customer service training has been revolutionized. Traditionally, our customer service agents would have to get proficient by taking thousands of hours of live calls. We're now using AI-powered synthetic personas to generate training content for our customer service agents. This allows us to accelerate their skills development and be more scalable and consistent with the kind of training we give them. We're not just using generative AI here to replace humans. We're using generative AI to improve our humans' performance. Again, these aren't just technological improvements. They represent a fundamental reimagination of how we perceive our workplace productivity. And we're always looking for new opportunities to reimagine what we're doing. Okay? We take inspiration from some of our leaders. This is a quote from Colleen Aubrey, one of our SVPs at AWS. She suggested if we could create tools that make image generation simpler and easier, we could not only benefit our advertisers, but we can also create a better shopping experience for our customers. So that's what we did. We took generative AI and we applied it to advertising. And I'm going to ask my colleague, Nikhil, to come on and tell you the story of how we did that.
Thanks, Gary. Hello, everyone. Welcome to reInvent. I hope all of you are having a great time. I am Nikhil Nanivadekar, a principal engineer in creative tech at Amazon Ads. Today, I'm happy to present our progress in delivering generative AI solutions for our Amazon Ads customers. It's been quite a journey, and it's been such an amazing place to be in. And I'm excited to dive deep in all the technical as well as the science progress that we have had. Over the past year, we have seen businesses take advantage of AI to drive performance across all the advertising funnel, as we like to say. So let's take a look. This should be quite familiar to you. When you go to Amazon, you try to search, let's say in this example, search for men's shoes, running shoes, and the search results pop up. A few parts that are kind of important to look at are you get to see the product image that is there, you get to see the titles, then there's the prime promise, the star rating, so on and so forth. As a shopper, we try to make it easy for you in your shopping journey to get all the important information to aid you make that purchase, right? Now going on to the detail page, this is a typical product detail page where you have the image again, then you have the title or the name of the product, the price, the prime promise, so on and so forth, the star rating. Now, an exemplary product detail page addresses these purchase barriers. It gives you the necessary information that is required. It has descriptive content. It tells a brand story. It provides precise and non-repetitive information. And last but not the least, it has an impactful high-resolution image, which is going to tell you what exactly that product is, right? This is where we identified that there was actually a content gap. There was a creative barrier. Because as all of us know, there are multiple ways to engage with shoppers, right? And the shoppers are also engaging with our products both online as well as offline. But to draw meaningful attention and engagement, you need to deliver visuals that are not only on brand, but they also need to be timely, right? And they need to be relevant. However, the reality is that the tight timelines and the resources, well, it's not just timing, right? It's also expensive to make those visually stunning assets that are required, right? And it's also the expertise, right? Not everyone knows how to make these visually striking assets available. And lastly, we also know that stale content does not relate very well to shoppers because they essentially see the same thing over and over again, and they're like, all right, it's the same. So you also need to have seasonally relevant content. And what I mean by seasonally relevant content is, like, for example, now the Christmas holiday season is coming up, right? We should start showing stuff which is more relevant to that. Now, what that means is the advertisers have to go update their assets to make it relevant for the season. Now, all throughout the year, across the 12 months, we'll have different seasons, and that makes the necessity for different themes to be applied, right? So we saw this, and we saw that this was an opportunity, and our customers, our advertisers were telling that, hey, can you help us? So working backwards from our customer, what did we do? Last year, we launched a quick and easy way for brands to start from scratch and build images. We call it the image generator. As we can see in the video, advertisers can use it while generating their campaigns. And all they need to do is select their product and choose the option with just a click of a button to say they want the AI-generated image. Behind the scenes, our AI identifies the actual product that is there and builds 4 different stunning images for the advertisers. The advertisers can pick one and submit it on their campaign. That's it, just a click of a button. It's ready within seconds, right? And then it shows to our to the shoppers in their shopping journey. Let's actually do a technical deep dive, right? Like Gary mentioned, this is a 300-level session. So let's actually now start looking at going really deep into how we delivered this. As we just saw, advertisers enter through the Amazon Ads Console. We have the API gateway for routing, et cetera, et cetera. They choose the product that is there. We get the necessary product details. And if they are interested in providing any inputs, we use those. And then the output is generated by this image generator inference step. We generate, as you all saw, a variety of images, and we surface it to our advertisers. Now, at this point, all of you must be asking, all right, Nikhil, this is like way too high level. This is at a 50x. Like, come on, show me like the cool stuff. Like, what exactly did you do? How did you do it? Right? Are you really interested to know that? Right? I see a lot of nodding heads. So let's dive in. So this is and I'm going to walk you through the entire process. So it might feel like, hey, it's a workflow diagram. There are so many steps. That's exactly it is. That's exactly what it was. We came up with a collection of models that we needed to deploy to prod. And what we identified as we needed to have separate steps to do specific tasks so that we could generate these amazing images that we could surface in front of our advertisers. For example, Going from the top, you can see that there's the product salient feature extraction. Because as you remember, the advertisers just select their product. There's no prompt engineering required from them, right? So what we do is we use the product details from the Amazon product detail page to extract the salient features. In the example that we saw, it was an energy drink. So using that, we get to identify like what all should be the aspects, what exactly does the product do. In addition to that, just going one level down, is the product image selection. We select the product that is available on the detail page so that we can use that. Now, essentially, now that we have the product that is available, what we realize that like we have to actually separate it between amongst the front, the actual product and the background. So using some computer vision models which are deployed on SageMaker, we essentially separate them so that now what it allows us to do is in our input, we get the salient features, we get the actual product that we want to advertise and generate the image for, and as well as the advertiser inputs. All of those go through our responsible AI guardrails. And we use them, so we actually bookend our entire workflow with responsible AI guardrails. Because we want to make sure even the inputs that are going in our foundational models are also RAI compliant. And the very next step after the filters is a fine-tuned LLM for automatic prompt generation. What that does is it gets the salient features now, the advertiser inputs, as well as the product images, and it builds concepts. It builds these scenes which are going to be used for actually generating the image. This is how we have simplified it for our advertisers. No prompt engineering required. And then those inputs go into the text-to-image generation model, and that's how we get the outputs. Now, as you all saw, we surface multiple images for our advertisers, right? The way we end up doing that is the prompt generator generates more than one, in this case, n prompts, and each prompt generates multiple images, we'll say m. It leads to a Cartesian product of m times n, and that's how we get the diversity that's how we get multiple images. We upscale those images to make sure that like they fit the necessary resolution requirements, they fit the specs, so on and so forth. Then they go through the responsible AI guardrails, and then after that we choose the best ones to surface to our advertisers. This is the way there's no prompt engineering required. Now, all of you must think, all right, this was the entire workflow. It was kind of complicated. But how did we get here? There's a one-word answer for it. Prototyping. We started prototyping and iteratively developing all of these models back in 2023. We iterated on multiple models. We had a bunch of scientists actually use different models that were there, and then understand whether something was good or bad, whether they need to change some parameters. And that's how they kept on iterating and building and identifying. In this, SageMaker actually was the centerpiece of our inference flow, where the scientists used to register their prototype models in the registry. And then when they would realize that, when they would think that, all right, it's getting somewhere, it's good enough, so to say, they would expose that behind a testing endpoint. And then the testing endpoint would generate the images in an S3 bucket. And we used Amazon SageMaker ground truth for evaluation at scale. Because remember, we were generating images. And images inherently are going to be subjective. So you need to identify at scale whether something was good or bad. Hence, that's how, by using human evaluation, and we used Amazon SageMaker ground truth to help us do that. Now, the iterative development is what led to this workflow which we saw. We did a nice deep dive on that one, but that is not all. As I mentioned before, responsible AI was one of the important steps, and we invested in it from the get-go. We bookend our workflow through the with the responsible AI filters. And the way it is built is so that we can reuse these building blocks for all of our offerings. So let's look at it. The responsible AI was an important part of our workflow. So what we found was we needed to have a combination of these building blocks, which are going to be sort of important for each aspect of that responsible AI specification. And that's how we stitched it together. We use, and this is, again, a very super high-level representation. We use Amazon Bedrock guardrails, Amazon Recognition, Amazon Comprehend. And in addition to that, we also have our custom rule-based filters for some fine-grained control if we need it. We use Amazon guardrails to help us detect sensitive content like PII. We can even define topics that we consider are irrelevant and should not be used. And lastly, the Bedrock guardrails also help us for the foundational models that are already hosted on Bedrock. Moving on, the Amazon Recognition block, as you see, we use that to detect inappropriate content. And also, we categorize assets against some of the categories if, we disallow. And it also helps us, recognition also helps us detect, let's say, celebrities and do those checks. Comprehend helps us detect, again, PII information. So this is how. And lastly, the custom rule-based filters that we have is if we want to have even more fine-grained control and make sure certain specific things are allowed or disallowed, we can do that, right? So as a combination of all of these, it becomes a responsible AI service, so to say, for us. And now going back, again, looking at the image generation workflow, this is the entire image generation workflow we built. Now, I want to confess something. We built it as a purpose-built solution. And the reason why we built it as a purpose-built solution was because we wanted to prototype, we wanted to learn, and we wanted to put it in front of our customers at a very fast pace. We launched this last year in October of 2023, the image generation functionality for our advertisers. It was announced at Unbox, which is the Amazon Ads conference that we have every year. And since then, what we realized is this purpose-built framework was really good. It was great for that initial prototyping and initial prototyping to production phase. But we needed to scale. We needed to scale our offerings. And then in 2024, we wanted to get more advertisers to adopt this functionality. So we realized that, if you remember before, the content barrier that was there. And for that, if you wanted to have seasonally relevant images, we would have to generate them in bulk. We will have to keep them ready for advertisers so that we could even recommend them that, hey, this particular season is coming up, refresh your creative. We wanted to give those recommendations. Hence, we needed to bulk generate all of these. Now, do you think, even though this was a purpose-built solution, do you think we had to rewrite the whole thing again? Just to go from, a single advertiser flow to a bulk flow? No, we did not have to. We use AWS's multi-account strategy. We were able to isolate online and offline workloads by doing that. And all we had to do was make a few certain small API changes so that we could detect which was in the advertiser flow online and which was there in the offline flow, right? This allowed us to also have independent scaling controls. And that was super important because especially during peak time when we might be serving a lot more traffic, we were able to optimize the way we were using our infrastructure. Lastly, the cloud development kit or the CDK, it provided the reproducible environments for us. So it was as easy as making those small API changes that are there, and then creating a new AWS account and deploying it there. That's it. That easy, that straightforward. So just to summarize, we started our journey back in 2023 with iterative and fast prototyping. SageMaker was the central part of our inference platform. You all might think that Amazon is this huge company with limitless resources, but that's not how we operate. We operate like a startup, right? And the two pizza team model that we have actually helps us move fast as well. So we started out small, but we had big goals in mind. So while prototyping, we also deployed our SageMaker endpoints directly. And while we knew we wanted to scale to other offerings, we made sure we had the bias for action so that we could put the solution in front of our customers. We invested in responsible AI from the get-go as building blocks. And lastly, our prototypes showed that the composite model and workflows yielded improved results over a single workflow or model. So let's actually go down our journey and see how we have fared. This is the output that you can see that our models or our workflows used to produce from in Q1 of 2023. A simple prompt like a close-up shot of a worn-out baseball in dirt would produce an output like this. I mean, it's a ball, it's a baseball, sure. The dirt is there, but I mean, I personally don't think that it's like the output is doing the justice to the input, or it's not per my expectation. Now, our tech and science has evolved rapidly over the past year. This is what the current model produces for the same prompt. The baseball actually looks like a ball, like a baseball. The dirt looks like dirt. And the wear and tear actually looks realistic, right? And that's important. And that goes to show you how we are on this journey at an ultra fast pace and how amazingly our tech and science is evolving. Let's look at another example. A simple prompt of 3 oranges on a railing with the sun setting in the background. We can actually see that we have 3 oranges, that's sure, but they're flying on the railing or something like that, and the sun is not even present, right? I mean, it just makes me laugh actually. But anyways, this is where we are. Currently, our models actually produce much more realistic outputs. The 3 oranges are on the railing. You can see the sun setting in the background. You can also see the silhouette of the tree, right? It feels more realistic. And that's what shows we have come such a long way. The tech and science is improving, and it's evolving as we go. So that made me ask, can we do more? Or is that it? Is it just text to image? We always want to innovate, and we always want to invent on behalf of our customers. So we did something. We had the image being created for our advertisers. We thought, what if we could bring them to life by adding some small animation? If you look closely, there's actually the flickering candle in the background, right? And it's a spa setting. So it's like adding these subtle animations. It actually, creates this amazing experience for our customers. But that wasn't it all. We wanted to see how far we could even push this particular boundaries of our tech and science in this particular use case. As you can see, the camera pans now, and there's that subtle motion of the lavender fields. And what else could we do to delight our shoppers and advertisers? Here you can see that how the camera motion is actually helping you. So it makes you want to look. It makes you want to see what exactly is happening, right? And also, think about like, if we could pan the camera, could we zoom in, right? We got that as well. And that's how we are taking innovation to the next step. Generative AI has actually made it possible to add motion to these AI-generated images. Earlier this year, we launched a feature which we call as live images. It is a new feature that leverages AI and adds subtle camera motion or parallax effects to standard product shots. And it brings them to life. So the way it works is it takes your AI-generated images, and with a click of a button, it adds different, different camera moments, and also some subtle depth effects. So be it the crashing waves on the seashore where you're listening to music, or think about the steaming cup of coffee which you're about to enjoy in that field, or let it be the bouquet of flowers, swaying gently in the breeze, or even the night sky enthusiast who likes to see the Milky Way, right? We have it all. So do you want to know how we did it? I didn't hear. All right, cool. Gary, should we tell them? Okay, sure. Well, because Gary says. So this is the architecture that you're already familiar with. That's the image generator architecture. We just added a few more steps to it. We added a couple of more steps, which adds the depth and generates a video frame. And then we also had that image to video model that we used. That's it. Quite straightforward. So if you recollect, we had a purpose-built image generator architecture. And by just adding a few more building blocks, we are able to do live image generation. So this is where we started. And that is where we added a few more steps. But that wasn't it all, right? We also wanted to expand our offerings of image generation itself. We wanted to give the ability to our advertisers to be able to edit their images, be it change the location of the product or resize the product within that image, or sometimes even change a particular aspect of that of the produced image. So that's why we wanted to do image editing as well. And the way we did image editing is we get the editing prompts from the advertisers, we get the existing image that they're giving us, and then using LLMs, we actually augment these prompts. The reason why we want to augment these prompts is because we want to make sure that we are able to capture the advertiser intent so that the output that we produce is actually what they really wanted in the first place, right? Because remember, we want to make it as easy as possible for our advertisers. No prompt engineering should be required by them. So this way, we augment the prompts and then pass it to the editing model. The editing model produces the editing model essentially produces the outputs. And that's how we can actually give these new functionalities for our advertisers. Now you can see where we started. While it was easy to add a couple of more steps in the image generation workflow, this was a different workflow, right? So it's kind of interesting that while we began with a purpose-built solution, we needed to evolve. And we needed to actually evolve at a very high speed because we wanted to put all these solutions in front of our customers really fast. And as fast as we were actually building them. And you can see that while all of these workflows are kind of similar, they are different. So we couldn't just add more steps or simplify our way out of it or kind of have some out of the box ways to reuse. So what we did was we identified, hey, how could we improve the prototyping to production process? I'm actually a mechanical engineer, and now I write software. I have a bachelor's and master's in mechanical engineering. I used to build robots, build them and program them. And one of the things that they taught us was about continuous improvement. And the way you do continuous improvement in your process is you go back to the basics. You inspect what exactly is going on and how you can improve it. So that's exactly what we did. We identified how actually we were taking our workflows and models from prototyping to production. The scientists used to build their prototypes in their notebooks. They used to deploy them on SageMaker. The models will be available in the SageMaker registry that was there. And then when they were ready, they would start engaging with another group of scientists. And now another group of engineers. And now the engineers and the scientists would have some back and forth. They will discuss. They will understand what exactly needs to happen and how to interpret the model. How many of you have looked at someone else's code and thought, OK, what exactly it's doing? Some raise. All right. Pretty much all of us, right? Sometimes I look at my own code and I'm like, a few months later, I sometimes think, OK, what was I doing at that time, right? And now imagine, like, we were trying to innovate so fast. And at that time, this process, this back and forth was not just duplicative. It was mainly bug prone. Because the problem of lost in translation is actually extremely true and relevant for it. So the engineers would actually take and redefine the workflows as the scientists have explained to them and what they can see in the code. And they would end up having the necessary Lambda orchestration so that we could have the necessary resources and deploy them, so on and so forth. Now, as you can see, this was in overall, you can see the overall theme. It was pretty much time-consuming and bug-prone. So we thought, what can we do? I mean, we're Amazon, and we want to make sure that we are able to innovate so fast, right? We want to operate, and we do operate like a startup. So we said, what if we could simplify the process? What if we were able to streamline the whole development process? If the scientists got an intuitive and reproducible environment that they could work in, where they did not have to worry about how things were getting deployed and how the resources were getting pulled. They did not have to do the same thing over and over again. And they knew how exactly they have set up their prototype can be made production grade and can be shipped to prod. So we came up with a simplified process. We built a custom SDK, which has and introduced new annotations, like the at workflow that you see there, the at task that you see there. We introduced those. And then we said, now the scientists will be able to work in a declarative fashion. And what we meant by that is, all they had to do was declare what they wanted to do. And they did not have to worry about how something is happening. They could just assume it's going to happen behind the scenes. And that way, it just became the entire workflow became the set of steps that we saw before. But now they could just build it in their own notebooks, in their environments, and then ship it to prod. The engineers, what they did was they figured out a way to interpret using that custom SDK how we could define a blueprint and build an orchestrator such that that entire at workflow, at task, and the sequence of events could be interpreted. By doing that, essentially it created a workflow graph. And that workflow graph is what we use helps the orchestrator understand deterministically the set of steps that it has to execute. And then finally, based on the workflow step, the necessary resource, let it be Amazon Bedrock, AWS Lambda, Amazon SageMaker, could be invoked. This way, the workflow, which was built in a declarative way, is generated dynamically, and it runs deterministically on AWS. Isn't that cool? Amazing, right? So let's actually look at an example of the declarative workflow. if you remember, we saw the live image workflow, which powers the live images which we just saw. This is the method definition. Quite straightforward, right? There's that input, the return is the live image that's going to be returned. And now all we have to do is start filling in the blanks. We need the product info, that's it. It's a step, done. And the beauty of doing it in this way is even that task just has to be done once, right? You want to process the input image that was given? Done, another step. Generating the live image, that's it. Enhance if required and return. And notice carefully, there's like none of the redundant boilerplate that you see out there, boilerplate code that you see out there, right? Now that's not because I wanted to save space in the presentation. It's because that's exactly how we are doing it, right? And then looking at one of the steps, let's say generating the live image. The step itself has all the necessary parameters that are there. It knows which model it's going to use. It has all the inputs that are required. And the invocation happens on the model itself. So now the model knows whether it needs to invoke something on SageMaker, whether it needs to call Bedrock, whether it needs to go invoke another Lambda endpoint. And this is what helps build these things in a declarative way, which can also be reused. And now you'll say, but behind the scenes, Nikhil, you still have to do some work for your environments, right? Yes, we do. But it's a minimal environment setup. And the beauty of doing it in this way is you have to do that setup just once. And not once for every workflow, by the way. You have to do it just once, period. And that's the important part. So for example, in this minimal environment setup, the initialization, simple stuff like understanding which environment you're in, whether you're in dev, QA, prod, so on and so forth, that can be done quite straightforward. If you needed to sort of change or massage the name, so to say, you can end up doing that. But again, you just have to do it once, and you can do it consistently. It will be applicable the same way for everything else as well. And the invocation is, again, quite straightforward. You just do invoke real time. Now here, though, for saving space, I have not shown invoke async. But you can get the idea, right? Like async would be kind of the same straightforward thing where it will invoke async, and then you will have some polling for status checks and et cetera, right? You get the idea. Now, you would say, if you want to go even more deeper, like how exactly did we do it, right? So our invoke real-time is actually quite a straightforward call. We use runtime clients like Bot03, which AWS provides. There's no need to write the boilerplate code again and again and again for every single deployment. It's all abstracted out. And all the boilerplate, like all the work that needs to happen to actually make those invocations are completely encapsulated. So the folks, like the scientists, essentially have to focus on only building those workflows, understanding and identifying how they're working well together, and be rest assured that the way it's working in their local systems is exactly how it will be deployed in prod. Isn't it amazing? I see some nodding here. Isn't it amazing? Right? I mean, it really makes the engineer and the innovator inside me extremely happy. And I mean, this is just amazing in my opinion. So using this methodology, we actually expanded our offering. When we started with just image generation, we were able to add editing. We were able to add live image generation as well, because we used that as our first use cases while we were building this methodology. We were able to do image and product resizing. We could add styles. We could add themes. But again, we thought, could we do more? I mean, come on. Could we push the boundaries of AI and invent on behalf of our customers? So guess what we did? We launched the video generator, which is exactly like the image generator. All it requires is the advertisers to select their products, and it generates images. So as you can see here, the advertisers select their product, and then they get an option to choose an AI-generated video. Behind the scenes, our AI understands which product it is, defines the salient, understands the salient features, defines the scenes that it should generate, and also gets the headlines. We allow advertisers to update the headlines if required. And then that's it. Just in the matter of minutes, we are able to create videos and submit it. Amazing, right? Are you interested in understanding how we did that? Nice. All right. I like this crowd. So you can see the theme of my, you can see a consistent theme of my presentation. We took the live image generator architecture and we enhanced it. We added a few more workflows to generate the variety of videos that you saw. One of them is the text-to-video model. Another one was the text-to-image and then image-to-video model. And then the video, we upscaled those videos as well, right? But what this allowed us to do is we could start producing these variety of videos. In parallel, we also added, we also do headline generation because you did not see the advertiser having to input the headline at the start, right? We do that. We allow them to edit it if required, but we are taking care of it. So now, with a combination of the headline, the different videos that are there, we were now able to actually generate videos. And what ends up happening is the headlines, along with these variety of videos, goes into our video renderer. The video renderer runs on AWS Fargate, and of course, you can imagine that's because the payloads that are going to be there with these variety of videos and headlines together, like we just wanted to, we found better success in running it on Fargate. Now, zooming in, the text-to-video model, if you all recollect, yesterday, Andy Jassy announced the Amazon Nova Reel. That's exactly what we do. That's what we use to generate the videos, the text-to-video model. And it generates the 6-second videos that essentially we can surface to the advertisers. In preparation for reInvent, we actually prepared a video, and let's see how it looks like. This is an example of a whimsical world of pasta, which the model generated for advertising a pasta brand. And as you can see, so this is a fun and creative story that the models created, right? To advertise the pasta brand. I mean, who could have thought like a fantasy pasta village with like the cannolinis being the fences, the meatballs as dividers? Amazing, right? And remember, this is just the start. Like the models are already like, so here, but they're only going to improve from here. It's only going to get better. Amazing, right? Now you saw all of these functionalities. And we launched the studio, the AI Creative Studio, earlier this year, for where we are bringing all these features in one place, where advertisers can conceptualize, generate, and refresh their ads. Let's look at how it works. So when the advertisers go to the studio, they can select their product shot and ask our AI to generate different concepts. We provide a variety of concepts based on the product that they have given to us. And then they can choose which one they like the best. Let's say in this case, it's the Zen-inspired one. Now we give them a creative dial which they can use, and they can tune their images. So as you see, and if they go a bit too far, they can bring it down. I like this one. And then with a click of that button, you can make it live. Or even generate videos. right? Isn't that amazing where everything is coming together? I can imagine drinking that cup of coffee, by the way, on the beach. How cool is that? It's pretty cool, right? Nice. I see a lot of nodding heads, so I'm happy. I'm not the only one who's feeling like really excited about this. Yeah, I mean, this is really, really great. Like, it makes me really happy. The engineer and the innovator inside me actually is super excited looking at where we have come. And again, it's only going to get better. So now we did all of these launches. We built all of these capabilities. Let's take a look at how it also had a business impact. We found that on average, brands that use AI-powered creative solutions were seen to advertise 5 times more products. They used twice as many images per advertised product over those that did not. This allowed them to expand their campaigns and experiment with new strategies. Advertisers that use AI-generated creative solutions experienced an increase of 17% on their return of ad spend. Advertisers who began using AI-generated images in sponsored brand campaigns saw nearly an 8% higher CTR or click-through rate on average than those without custom images. Advertisers who began using image generator on sponsored brands saw over a 4% lift in sales on average post-adoption versus those who did not. And lastly, sponsored brand advertisers that use image generator created 88% more advertiser campaigns. So that does mean that all the innovation and all the tools that we are building are actually creating an impact on our advertisers and on our users. This led us to having a few key insights. The generative AI solutions that we had actually fueled an iterative and agile approach to creative experimentations by our advertisers. They were able to build effective ad campaigns that reflected shopper motivations and needs. And lastly, generative AI continues to improve the way the offering stands out. They're able to build visually striking ads. Isn't that amazing? I do want to leave all of you with, and this is the second to last slide, I do want to leave all of you with some of the key takeaways and all the lessons and some of the key lessons that we learned as we evolved in our journey. And I think these are generic enough that you can use them not just for any of your generative AI solutions, but for pretty much any of your deployments. The very first one is it's important to separate offline versus online calls. You want to make sure you're giving independent scaling controls. You want to make sure that a bulk process, which can have higher latency, does not block a process that is in the advertiser flow. The SDK working model was an important innovation that we had. And the way we did that was, again, we went back to the basics. We identified how exactly we were working. And by identifying those bottlenecks, we were actually able to eliminate them. This helped us decouple the work across 2 separate groups of folks. And then we could have iterative prototyping, which could go to prod at a very high speed. Talking about prototyping, Lambdas were extremely fast for us to prototype, test, and iterate. They were really good, by the way. We also used Lambda in async to avoid idle time and optimize the way we were using the resources. We used AWS Fargate for long-running processes, as well as the ones that can have a larger memory footprint. And lastly, the most important rule that I think all of us should accept is infrastructure changes are going to be necessary as we are in this journey, because everything is evolving. All the models are also evolving. But it's important that each of that change is transparent to the stakeholders. If you want to do even the smallest change, doesn't mean that it should take a long time for that to reflect. So always make sure that these infrastructure changes, even though necessary, they're transparent to your stakeholders. With that, I would really like to thank all of you for attending my session and Gary's session, if you were to come over, Gary. And don't forget to rate and leave the survey, because it only helps us make our content better. Thanks a lot.